right, everyone. Jeramy Poole here with another episode of Fearless, the web series. I have my good friend joining us today, Gerald Hennessey. Gerald, if you wouldn't mind, give these fine folks a little bit of background on what you've been up to, what you're doing now, and kind of what you have going on in the future.
Sure, Jeremy. I've been a real estate investor for 12 years now in the Tacoma, Washington market, as well as a number of other markets in the country, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, California, and Hawaii. I'd love to get into a number of other markets as well out there, but
yeah,
that's having a real big appetite, right?
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. So, Gerald, one reason why I decided to have you on the show is that I obviously had you on our other show, The Moment, which was fantastic. But you're somebody who is I would label as not being risk adverse, just like myself. Somebody who has a healthy appetite for adventure and that wants to take on these challenges. And sometimes we're reaching, right? We're reaching for the things that we want. And so I'd like for you to talk to me a little bit about your relationship with fear and how you've utilized it as a positive force that has propelled you forward to do larger and greater things versus in using it as a negative force, which could, in most cases, hold people back.
Absolutely. You know, fear is one of those things that affects all of us. I don't think there's anybody that's really immune to fear. It's really about how we deal with it and cope with it. So once we recognize that it's not possible to eliminate fear, it's more possible to manage it. And then I found in my life that taking fear and using it as a tool to motivate you can really be a successful tactic on how to cope with fear. The crazy thing that happens in life is that fear is a good thing. It's supposed to be there. It's part of our human design to have fear as an element there to really save our lives. For survival. It's really a survival instinct thing there. So we all have to deal with it. But what happens when fear feels warranted or justified, like you've had a bad experience? And so now you're like, let's say you touch the hot stove or a fire and you burn your hand. Right. Now I'm afraid of fire and the stove and everything. And that's how it's supposed to work. But, you know, if we didn't get over that fear to learn how to cook, and to use a stove or to be near a fire again, you know, what would our lives look like?
Absolutely. No, that's good stuff. You know, I was just doing some research on this stuff yesterday, and the physiological response to both fear and excitement in the body is literally the exact same, right? Like we get hypertension, a rapid heartbeat, our body starts to seize up, our muscles get tight. There's a sense of readiness for action. And it's the same, whether you're excited, like, oh my God, I cannot wait. It's the same thing as, oh my God, something's is about to kill me. The only difference is the message that this mechanism, our brains, is telling us. One is telling us you should be afraid. Another one is telling us that we should be excited. And learning that if we can just have an anchoring thought and change that and utilize that rapid aggressive readiness to take on a challenge. For me, I found that all kinds of epiphanies, all kinds of really interesting ideas. All of a sudden I get all kinds of just, I don't know, like clear thought. I have a heightened sense of awareness all of a sudden. If I, rather than scale back and identify that experience as fear, if I turn it around and look at it as a place of excitement. Because for me, I find that the things that I really want to do in life are scary. But first, it's like, yes, I want to do it. Then it's like, holy crap, I don't have the resources. I don't have the connections. I don't know how to do it. I haven't done it before. And I think what divides the men from the boys is, do you look at it and say, I'm going to do it scared and I'm going to do it anyways? Or do you say, you know what, I'm just not ready. I think I'll sit this one out, you know?
Yeah. And the women too out there. I mean, they're affected just the same as this. And absolutely. I love the way you said that, because it's true that excitement and fear are very similar. So our bodies operate off of electrical and chemical components, right? And so those two processes of our body telling us to be fearful of something or to be excited of something, from a biochemical, bioelectrical standpoint, they're both very, very similar.
Absolutely.
Right? And so then thus is the option of what we have to do with that, right? So we have we have the option to either freak out, ah, you know,
Right.
oh no,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
we have the option to take it and go, yeah,
Write it. Yeah, write it.
yes, this is an opportunity to either go down in flames or
Yeah.
to ride the horse of success into the sunset. You know?
That's right. That's right.
And once you've had an experience of taking a situation that's absolutely terrifying and fearful, and you've converted it successfully into something that you wanted as a great, a positive outcome, there's no other feeling like that. You know, some would compare it to sex or whatever else, but the truth is there's really no feeling greater than taking something that other people would be terrified and scared of and being like, yes, I absolutely crushed it and turned it around.
Right, right. Yeah, because then, you know, when you do that, you surprise yourself and you realize almost how effortlessly you handled it. It's like I feel that human beings were ancient, right? There's all kinds of lessons and things that we already know. It's already deep inside of us. And the times that I thought that I was screwed, okay, it's done, it's over, you know, I'm going to take my beating on this one, and I just let things happen, I somehow finagled my way to be in a better position afterwards than I was prior. Just by responding and sort of surrendering to it, not surrendering in the sense of giving up, it's surrendering in the sense that I'm going to do my very best and see what happens.
But you're talking about acceptance, right?
Acceptance, correct.
Acceptance that, okay, this is what the situation, this is what the facts are.
Right.
And then owning it too.
And then owning it.
Okay, this is my situation of my facts and my scenario. Right. And it's up to me to do something with it.
And to, you know, it's like, you know, it's the equivalent of being on a surfboard and you see this massive swell and you've never ridden a wave quite this aggressive, quite this fast, quite this big. And some individuals want to bail. Like, look, I'm just going to roll, take the beating, hold my breath for a few minutes, and I'll come out on top, hopefully. Some individuals and say, no, here's the big one. I'm riding this all the way in, you know.
Yeah, I'm from Southern California, so I definitely understand surfing euphemisms and comparisons. And I'll tell you, the greatest thing about surfing is when you finally get it. It's kind of similar to snowboarding too, right?
Sure, yeah.
That when you're first trying it out, you don't get it. You're trying to fight against the natural forces of the wave.
Natural forces.
Or of the slope, right? The natural slope on a mountain, right? And so you're trying to go against it, and in snowboarding, one of your edges gets caught, and boom, now your face on the ice, or you go the other way. But as soon as you finally get it, and for me, I remember years ago when I first snowboarded, I finally got it, and same with surfing. It's when you let go and you try to just be aware of what the situation is, anticipate where it's going to go next.
Right.
And that's been key for me is, okay, I could be fearful of the situation, and most of the time fear comes because we don't know what's going to happen next,
and that is what's scary. Right?
That uncertainty. I don't know. I like knowing in my life what's going to happen next. We all do,
right? Well, go ahead.
Oh, and when we don't know, it's like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, right. You know what's crazy, you know, I feel like for most of us, or maybe hopefully for most of us, nothing really terrible happens, right? Like 90% of the stuff that you worry about almost never happens. And even the stuff, and even if it does happen, it's really not as bad as we envisioned. And that's so right. I've been trying to take a more active role in controlling my mind and directing it towards, listen, fear and excitement ultimately start with faith. Is your faith going to steer you towards being really afraid of something that hasn't even happened yet? Or are you going to allow that emotional state to steer you in a direction that leads you towards, I'm a conqueror, this is going to end up being one of the best things ever? And whether the bad one or the good one happens, it doesn't matter up until it actually happens. So you might as well live in the space of being excited and enjoyment of your journey rather than in constant fear. Because there has been times when I was growing various different businesses and we're growing really fast and I'm bringing on new people, and 1 month, you know, we don't do very well. The next month we make a ton of money, and that's my new standard. I want to keep that standard. And what happens if I can't? Then it's like you're playing all these games in your mind, and your mind is very, very good at that. And oftentimes, if you're inquisitive, if you're curious, it might lean towards a negative direction versus positive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. Our mind definitely makes things out to be worse than what the outcome actually is all the time. And I always think back to like that movie, The Hangover 2, where Mr. Chow, he's like, "But did you die?"
Right.
Oh, I guess I didn't. So I guess
No. Actually, I'm still here.
I'm still right here. Hey,
that's good.
And it's crazy because like even when you're in the thick of it, when bad things are happening and you're surrounded by tragedy. I mean, I've had investment properties or investment projects that have gone sideways in more than one way. Like, so I had one where, a contractor just took off with the money that we gave them. They never came back. Some of their workers took off with tools and supplies that we just spent thousands of dollars on. Right. Then somebody else is claiming that we owe them more money and they never even worked for us because they thought it was a free bandwagon. Then when we told them where to go with it, they come back after hours and steal all the electrical and plumbing, right? So sometimes these things can really compound on you and stack and stack and stack to where now you have evidence in front of you that supports that fear that's building up in your mind. And so what do you do when you have, like, I mean, fear has been described, the word itself has been described as an acronym of false evidence appearing real.
Right.
And so in our heads, we can try to cope with fear by saying, oh, it's not real, it's not real. But what happens when you have evidence of your worst fears coming true? And right. How do you cope with that? How do you deal with that? How do you get around, over, and through that?
Sure. No, there is a philosophy that tries to convince you that fear is not real. I'm a huge proponent that fear is absolutely real, and fear is an element that affects literally every aspect of your life. So if we can get good, in my belief, if we can get good at identifying what the fear is and that you're feeling fear, then you could almost like disable it. Like, oh, okay, I see what I'm experiencing and what I'm going through and how it's adversely affecting my life. So therefore, I have a choice. I have a choice to continue to believe and imagine the worst thing happening or imagine the best thing happening. But I'd like to take this time right now, Gerald, and talk about a specific instance in your business right now that perhaps you're dealing with fear. Maybe you're trying to take on a big project. Maybe you don't have enough projects. And how are you dealing with that emotional feeling and using that to help your business? Because I believe that successful people, specifically in the realm of real estate, aren't people who don't have problems. They're just people who are better at solving their problems.
Absolutely. Like we were talking about just a little bit ago, it's when you have evidence that your worst fears can come true, and because they actually are coming true, what do you do to overcome that and turn that? And some people shy away, some people run away. It's that fight or flight syndrome. So you've got this biochemical situation going on with you because you have a situation or you have evidence that these fears are real and they're actually happening. And so now you have this opportunity. And for me, everybody's a fight or flight. And for me, I'm a fight. Like I take that energy and that adrenaline that's running through your veins, and I literally take it and I convert it to massive action.
That's right.
I kind of freak out when things are going wrong. I start going crazy and people start saying that he's losing it because I'll make, if I don't have what I need to solve a certain situation, then I just start reaching out to everybody that I know and I start calling them frantically and hey, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? Until somebody says, hey, I have this.
Right.
That's perfect. Yes, let me get that. And then cool. Now there's one problem solved. Boom. What's next?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you're creating these relationships, you're enhancing these relationships that you have with these people already. Sure. And you're hopefully inspiring them to want to overcome their worst nightmares and situations as well.
Right.
So like I had in the last year, I had a project that was only supposed to take less than 6 months to flip it. And we just finally sold it after 18 months after we bought it.
Yeah.
And it was
I was hoping you could talk about this one.
It was a property that when I bought it, we were projected to make $180,000 in profit. It ended up turning out to be a lot different than that. We sold it for over $100,000 less than what we projected it to be, but I didn't lose any money.
Yeah.
But in the process, I lost a lot of time.
Sure.
But what is the value of that time? The time value of money you know, so if I look at it from that sense, I actually did lose a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of traction, acceleration that I had going on at the time. And so now I'm faced with a situation of, do I want to repeat that again? Do I want to take on another project that may have surprises, twists, turns to the plot and after I just went through that, do I want to have to suffer another 18 months of another property? So that's now the fear that is built up from the evidence that I've had most recently. Those are the scabs that I'm still peeling the Band-Aids off.
Sure. Now that is possible, and you've experienced that firsthand, you're like,
I survived it. I feel like a survivor, like like on a ship that sank and I was on one of the boats, I was one of the lucky ones. And so now I'm like, do I want to go on another cruise?
Right. What's so interesting is like when you're going through it. So I remember just a little bit ago when you're kind of, we're going through that and you're telling me about the deal and how it's just going on and on and on. And it's easy for somebody on the outside to say it's going to be okay. It is totally. But when you're in it every single day, you're having to deal with it. You're like, is it going to be okay? I mean, is it going to be all right?
we ask ourselves that question daily, right?
Sure.
I mean, and because we want to make sure that we're concerning ourselves with everything that we can.
You don't want to be naive, right?
Right. We don't want to be stupid. We don't want to get caught up. We don't want to be blindsided by anything that could be totally preventable.
Sure.
But in the end, we know from experience, there are the unforeseen, unpreventable blindsides. Sometimes in life, some people will just walk up to somebody and punch them in the face. There's a story on the news. We're here in the Seattle area, and there's a story on the news about how some crazy guy that's been locked up a bunch of times for doing crazy stuff just the other day got arrested because he randomly tried to shove a woman over a freeway overpass.
Wow.
He tried to grab her and throw her over. It's like, we have to realize in life that there is the crazy random, there is the unforeseen, the unexpected, the things you cannot plan for, especially in real estate. Real estate is rife with risk.
Totally. Excellent. Well, Gerald, thank you so much for being on the show, brother. This has been a great episode. I love your energy. You have a ton of experience dealing with fear, and I can't wait to see where your career takes you in the next several years. I know you have a few great projects that you're working on right now, and it's going to be an exciting time.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to the Fearless Mastermind. If you don't have your tickets, contact Jeramy.
Contact me.
Dialed in for this event. It's going to be absolutely awesome.
It's going to be great. Thank you so much, Gerald, and I'll talk to you soon, brother.